Happy Wednesday, magic makers, and welcome to another Wellness Path Witchcraft. So on this channel, we talk about all things to do with wellness, witchcraft, and spirituality. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. Please like and subscribe, and I'll be putting new content out every Wednesday. This week, I'll be talking about my spiritual journey so far, from when I was a very young child, throughout high school, college, after college, up until now. So we're going through various different phases of my life, various different phases of my spirituality, my evolution, and where it has brought me so far. So as far as my spiritual journey, obviously it started when I was very young. So as a child, I kind of identified loosely as a Christian. I didn't really practice very much. I didn't go to a lot of church. My mom identified herself as a Christian, and my dad never really identified as religious growing up. I just kind of identified with that because I felt that that was the most common identification as far as religion. So growing up, like I said, my mom identified as a Christian and she would go to church sporadically. She has a lot of mental health issues, so this was due to a lot of religious delusions, believing that she needed to go to church in order to repent or in order to appease God. I was exposed to a lot of that as a child, which really skewed my perception of religion a lot. To me, I was kind of exposed to how it could be perceived as very irrational. So for me, it really did skew my perception of not only Christianity, but a lot of organized religions. And so when I was in high school, I had a phase where I was pretty non-religious, pretty loosely, maybe either identifying as a Christian or not necessarily identifying with any religion. At this point, I didn't really understand the difference between religion and spirituality. To me, they were almost one and the same. If you asked me what the difference was, I wouldn't really be able to explain. I wouldn't really be able to explain how organized religion is very different from very individualized spirituality. And today I don't identify myself as religious at all, but I do identify as very, very spiritual. And so for me, that makes a lot of sense. But for some people who aren't exposed to that kind of stuff and they're only really experience organized religion, it might not make a lot of sense to them. So it was in high school. It was actually my freshman year of high school. I was really kind of questioning religion and spirituality in general. So around this time, I just decided on a whim to do this online quiz that I had found about what religion would be best for you. Typed it into Google or something because I was just had the thought to do so. And it said the one that I identified most with, or that I would identify most with, was Buddhism. And at this time I didn't know anything about Buddhism, like no knowledge of Buddhism. I decided to really kind of go into learning about the religion, what it was about, what the beliefs were, morals or rules there were for the religion. And I found that the more I kind of learned about the basics, the fundamentals of Buddhism, the more I identified with it. I really felt like I was kind of called to it at that point in my life. I started completely identifying as Buddhist. Definitely kind of dove deep into doing research on the religion because it was fascinating to me. I identified as a Buddhist for several years. Maybe midway through college, I sustained the same beliefs in Buddhism. It was just I wasn't identifying with it as well, but I kind of felt like a fake, because I wasn't practicing, I wasn't meditating, I wasn't doing what I felt like I should to be able to identify with the religion. So it was kind of like a disconnect there. That label for me kind of fell away. I didn't really identify as a Buddhist myself, but I identified as someone who had very strong beliefs in the Buddhist teachings and very high respect for Buddhism as a religion. I definitely still do to this day. Still try and adhere to the Four Noble Truths and the Middle Way. And I still believe in karma and nonviolence. I'm a vegetarian, actually. I really feel like it's still part of my core being. After I moved on from identifying as a Buddhist, I started identifying as just agnostic. So if you're not aware, agnosticism is basically having belief that there's no real way to know whether or not there's a God. Or for me, it was kind of not having faith in a God necessarily, but being very open to the idea. I still identify as agnostic. I really felt like agnostic was my identity at that point. Up until that point, I had only had a few different experiences with witchcraft. Didn't really know a whole lot about it. One of the first experiences I had as a child with witchcraft was watching the movie The Craft. And it's a very popular movie. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the movie, and I know a lot of people love the movie and are fascinated with it, and when I saw it, I was pretty fascinated with it myself. That was really intriguing to me, and it really kind of like opened my eyes to like the possibility of that being something that I would identify with. And when I was a freshman in high school, I had an upperclassman who was in one of my classes who identified as a Wiccan at that point in time, and I didn't know anything about Wicca, and I hadn't really heard of that prior. So I was curious and did a little research, and I thought that was just super interesting. So obviously you can kind of see a pattern here. And then it was also in high school that I bought my first deck of tarot cards. I actually still have the deck. I still use the deck, like it's my only and my main deck. I have always kind of been drawn to like the New Age section in bookstores. I don't know if that's something that all like witches are drawn to before they discover witchcraft, but that was definitely very true for me. Another experience I had with witchcraft before I actually like fully discovered it was I was having a really tough time after a breakup with an ex-boyfriend. I really was having a tough time moving on, but I knew that was like what I needed to do. I knew that he was no good for me. I knew that dwelling on the past was making it worse for myself. And so I decided one night to look up how to do a spell to forget about an ex. I forgot about this completely until years later, and I realized like, oh my god, I did witchcraft when I was in high school. Crazy. But I did a spell that I had found on the internet. I think I perhaps made a sigil of his name, and I believe I froze it in the freezer and just left it there. But through all of these like experiences that I had prior to my actual like discovery of witchcraft, like I said, I had a lot of experience with religious delusions when I was a child. So up until that point, I held a lot of sustained beliefs that witchcraft was evil. So I kind of struggled with that, even though I didn't identify as a Christian for many years. I still technically struggle with it sometimes, which I think is just kind of like a toxic effect of organized religion in and of itself, which is an entire talk for another day. It was when I was on my honeymoon with my husband. I had checked out a book and started reading it a little bit before we left for our honeymoon. It was called Witch by, I believe it's Lisa Lester. I finished the entire book while we were on our honeymoon in like the magical place of Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I don't know if you've ever been, but not only is it gorgeous everywhere, but it's so magical. Like, it's a quaint little town. It's just, I love it. It's great. Visit. And it really opened my eyes to like obviously what witchcraft was, what it was about, like why you would want to be a witch, all of that. And I was absolutely fascinated and so excited to start, because at that point I fully identified as a witch. I fully identified with witchcraft. And so after that, I dove head first into the world of witchcraft, and I just haven't stopped since. I have been learning so much this entire time, and I continue to learn so much because there's always going to be so much to learn. Some of the things that I have decided to look into after discovering witchcraft: crystals, tarot, dream work, law of attraction, manifestation, spells and rituals and the correspondences for those. I've been working on my intuition, working on shadow work very recently. That's something I'm really getting into right now. Just continuing to learn forever. Like I'm like a lifelong learner, and to find a spirituality or like a spiritual path that it makes a lot of sense to just continue learning about it. It's great for a lifelong learner. I love it. So after that, I joined a red tent, which, if you don't know what a red tent is, it is a women's group. It refers to like biblical times when they had women in tents during menstruation and childbirth, and they would just kind of go and commune together. We meet once a month and we commune together, and we have topics that we talk about. We share stories and experiences and food with the circumstances that are going on now. We've been doing it virtually, which is still very exciting to connect with these people because I've really learned a lot from them, and it's really helped me grow. And from them, I actually found a pagan temple for where I live. I have been able to go to a full moon ritual and a little workshop that they put on. After all this stuff has passed, I am so excited to go back and participate in so many of their events. And then I've also joined an online coven. They offer a lot of support, and it was really exciting for me to kind of just say, like, I have a coven. Like, finally, and almost like most importantly, I have been so passionate about this that I've started an entire business around witchcraft and helping other people discover witchcraft and to hone their practice and to better themselves for it, or better themselves because of it. And I'm so excited and thrilled for where it's taking me. I have an Etsy shop with crystals. I have a few art pieces, and I now have a zine and tarot readings. I've had a couple practice readings for some people in my coven, and they all said that it was just so on point, which honestly to me like baffles me, but I'm super psyched about it. And then obviously the YouTube channel, which I'm also super excited to be starting. I'm super excited to be meeting you guys and for you guys to be learning from me, because I'm still a beginner, obviously. Let's not play. I was once a very, very beginner, and I'm so excited to inspire people to join me on this path. I'm super excited and I'm super stoked about witchcraft still. I'm so very passionate about it. I think it's a means of changing the world. I think it's a means of changing your life. I think it's a means of healing and inspiration, and I hope that I inspire you, and I hope that you stick around to learn from me what knowledge I can give to you, and I hope that you share your knowledge with me, because I'm still learning as well. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, you know the drill, do all the things. Like I said, I make new videos on Wednesdays about spirituality, witchcraft, and wellness. I really hope you guys tune in next time, and I'll see you. Bye.